So I was trying to get this damn fucking phone to do a voice command to record a video, but it was refusing to do so. Anyhow and anyway, this is Mark, your friendly Android fanatic, and now your friendly transmission rebuilder fanatic guy. So what we're doing today is we are just showing some verifiable evidence that this here transmission, which came out of that there van, commonly referred to in our industry as an asshole van. No derogatory reflection upon the owner of the van. It's just a funny, haha, pun intended type of deal. Since it's an Astro van, it just sounds like an asshole van. Anyhow, the customer and owner of this Astro van, all-wheel drive nightmare of a job. The all-wheel drives are just a bear to pull out and put back in. As far as R&Ring the transmission go, removal and replacement. But anyhow, this customer here in particular, his name is, we'll just call him Vector, because we don't want to use his real name in case he doesn't want his personal information being given out. So anyhow, his license plates are not going to be shown, and his name's not going to be given. We'll just give him a fake name for now. And yeah, he's a very patient customer. He's been waiting for about a month now, when it was only supposed to take a week, and he hasn't come in here and shot me in the head yet. So that's probably, for his own benefit, because he would like to get his van back. So yeah, shoots me in the head. It's not very likely time soon. So this is me. I'm Mark, your friendly transmission fanatic. And we are rebuilding this here 4L60E. As you can see, right here, came out of that there van. Oh, let's go take a picture of the underneath of the van. A sure shot. A clear indication that the transmission is in fact out of the van. As you can see, there's no transmission in there. And yeah, it has been pulled. They are a nightmare to pull. The best way that I know how is to use a scissor jack and pry down between the cross member, which is also the subframe for the torsion bars, and the unibody, or subframe if you will. Pry between the two and then create a gap right here. And once you have created the gap, then you can stick a wood block in there on each side, which will then create enough of an opening in order to weasel the transmission out of there. Of course, you pull the transfer case first before you pull the transmission, of course. You remove it from the back end of the transmission. And then once the transfer case and everything else around the transmission, including the torque converter bolts, have been removed, then, and only then, were we able to remove the transmission from the van. And the transmission that came out of the van is, of course, this transmission right here, which has been rebuilt for the most part. These are the reverse friction plates and steels that are going into it. They are obviously not the ones that came out of it. The ones that came out of it, which I should save in a separate container, as I did with the rest of the parts that came out of it. So yeah, all the parts that came out of it are right here. As you can see, the forward frictions, those are the ones that are burnt metal to metal. And reverse frictions were burnt but still functionable. The 3/4 frictions of surprising turn of events were actually in decent shape. But they're burnt nonetheless. Just they were usually the first set of clutches that burn up in this transmission, but for some odd reason, more than likely because he ran it low on fluid, these ones were not burnt up the forward clutches were burned up instead. So we replaced them anyways, because that's just what you do when you rebuild a transmission. You replace all the wearable parts, such as the gaskets, O-rings, lip seals, Teflon rings, bonded pistons, all the wearable parts. These are the bonded pistons that I was just referring to. So instead of using a lip seal and aluminum or steel piston, such as one of these guys that I'm going to show you right here. This is the old style. Back in the 700 R4 days, they looked like that instead of like this. New style, old style. And the old style, of course, took a lip seal that goes around the outer diameter of the transmission apply piston. So you can see pretty clearly there. It's your lip seal, the inner diameter and outer diameter. That under the old design, you would just replace the lip seals, which was much more inexpensively done, as opposed to now, where you have to replace the entire bonded piston, which has the rubber molded to it, which creates a problem because in this particular transmission, the culprit that usually creates the biggest and most commonly known problem is the 3/4 bonded piston. So where this rubber is fused together with the metal, the steel, it creates a porosity problem during the forging or machining process, where the two are brought together to be made into one piece, where they're no longer rubber and steel. It's a steel rubber bonded piston now. The two have become one. They are therefore married, stuck together for life. So during the bonding or the molding process for the bonded piston, when they mesh together the rubber with the steel, what happens is when the two come together, air pockets, little bubbles of air, tiny microscopic bubbles of air, get trapped between the rubber and the steel, and then it creates a problem that's most commonly referred to as a porosity problem. So when you get a porosity problem, it creates a cross leak, or for all intents and purposes, it creates a pressure loss because it can't seat and seal all the fluid from traveling past the rubber seals and the steel bonded piston, because you've got rubber and air trapped, you've got air trapped between the metal and rubber. And that creates a cross leak, that creates a pressure loss, that creates burnt up frictions. Frictions in and of themselves almost never just go bad because they're bad, just because they're worn out or flaking apart or whatever other thing that may cause friction plates to go bad. What causes friction plates to go bad is something else. In the case of this transmission, the transmission failed due to being run low on fluid. So this was a operator error. I hate to blame somebody for it, but all the evidence points towards an operator error because this thing was at least 2 or 3 quarts low on fluid when it got here, which means that it obviously had a leak. And when it has a leak, the most common problem or cause of failure is the operator not caring enough or being vigilant enough to stop driving it, check the fluid, then fill it with any amount of fluid that it is low, and then let's see what we're doing on the vantage point here. So yeah, if the wise, savvy, whatever the word you want to use is, if he's smart enough to pull over and make sure the thing has enough fluid in it, then he could probably save his transmission from burning up. But we don't want people to do that, because if they did, then people like myself, companies such as my own, would go out of business. And we don't want that, because then how am I going to feed my family? Whoa. Right? Right. So anywho, whoa. Okay. Yeah. So if everybody just did what they're supposed to do, check the fluids when they're filling up for fuel, that's a good rule of thumb to operate by. If everybody checked the fluids when they were filling up with fuel, then they would catch leaks before they turn into a major problem. The saying goes, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of care. That is a very, very true statement. So then, this is our anti-clunk clip. This is what takes the brunt of the force when you're putting it from park or neutral into drive or reverse, so it doesn't bang too hard when it engages. We need some brake clean. Pretty cold, but cookies. Right in the eyeball. I really hate it when that happens. Alrighty then. Alright, so then what we're doing now is just cleaning out any oil, debris, and crap, tarnish, varnish, garbage from the inside of the case for this transmission. And if you didn't already know, this transmission is a 4L60E, It is one of the middle designs. I believe this van is like a 2000-ish, 99. And Astro vans that still had the 4.3 liter engine or 5.0. It could be anything from the 4.3, 5.0, 5.7, and that's pretty much it. They never put big blocks or anything like that in these vans. So then, they had not yet converted over to using the 4.2, 4.8, or 5.3, or 6.0. Because once they made that changeover, they changed the bell housing. They changed the bell housing, the pump, the input shaft, and the torque converter, the valve body, the shift plate, not so much the valve body as the shift plate, solenoids, and on the later ones the case and quite a few other things. But anyways, see this chopped off bolt hole right there? On the early style, pretty much everything prior to 1999 and older, they used this style. See, no bolt hole. Where it comes to a peak, it's just a case, just bell housing without a bolt hole up there. I believe they did that so they could put a bracket at the stud that they put through the bolt hole, and that was the primary purpose in changing it, because they didn't have another adequate place to put a bolt hole, or I'm sorry, a bracket to hold the vent hoses and some other electrical component wires, which is ridiculously stupid reason for adding a bolt hole and completely remachining and retooling everything in order to that was a stupid idea in my opinion. So, just to show you real quick, all these clutches are new. As you can see inside here, the clutch plates are brand spanking new. And you can't really see down at the forwards, but they're new. You just have to trust me. Because the forwards that came out of it, that you just saw in that box over there a few minutes ago, yeah, those suckers were not functioning for very much longer. So if this thing drives off the parking spot, then you'll know for sure that they've been replaced. So, first thing to go inside the case is the rear ring gear, planetary ring gear, and planetary assembly with the output shaft. And before we do that, we need to wash it off first. Before we do that, we need to get a new can of brake clean. Yo, my voice is all low and shit. Baby, the riff, WRIF 101 rocks. Detroit. That's how Arthur Penhollow used to sound, or still sounds if he's still alive. I don't know, I haven't been back to Detroit in a while. So then that's that, and that's this, and there's that, and that's the other thing, and that's that, and the other thing, but ding, 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 ding. Shut up, man. You're annoying me. Yep, I'm talking to myself. Sometimes I relate to myself. Oh, Mark Douglas used to make me more as Mark Douglas. Just kidding. That was just me doing my Eddie Murphy impression. So yeah, you take a Smurf Jizz assembly goo and stick your rear Torrington bearing on there. Make sure everything spins nice and smooth, and it does. So we can move on to the next step, which is to put in the low reverse frictions and steels. And it takes this wave plate first. And then after the wave plate, it takes a steel plate. And they only go in one way. And if you ever learn how to rebuild transmissions, you'll be taught which way that is. Until then, trade secret. Haha. So the steels are loads of fun to get in when you first start doing this, because the clutches, because yeah, they only fit in over these tiny little teeth holes, slots. Sometimes if you just drop them in there, they'll fall down over them. Not very often will they do that. You gotta little weasel them around. Weasel, 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 neasel, keasel, feasel. Then you gotta put in the anti-clung clip with some Smurf Jizz on it. We already got the Smurf Jizz covered. We should probably put a little bit more just in case, because you want the thing to slip away from the wall. It's got to be stuck up against the transmission housing wall. And you don't want it to move from that spot, so you smear the Smurf Jizz all over the place and let it be stuck there good and snug against the transmission case wall. Then our next component is the center support, which has the low sprag and race in it. So the low sprag and race, you want to have everything that goes into this thing, you want to have nice and clean before it goes in, because you don't want no dirty shit going into your rebuilt transmission. Number one, because if the customer ever takes it apart down the road, or within a short amount of time or right off the bat, then you don't want him to pull apart a transmission with a bunch of dirty parts inside it, because then their first instinct is going to be to say, "This wasn't me built," bitch and moan and complain. And you don't want that, because unhappy customers make for unhappy business owners, and buyer beware type of people reading reviews. So just do whatever you can to make the customer smile within reason. I don't kiss customers' asses when they need to have their head slapped or be slapped upside their head, which is of course why I have more than I'd like to have as far as my share of bad reviews, 1-star reviews, and so on. Because when the customer's in the wrong, when a customer demands that I give them 100% money back guarantee, when it very clearly in bold block caps says the exact opposite on their invoices. No refunds given for any reason. No refunds, all sales are final. If you have a problem with the product you purchased, please see the written limited liability warranty, and we will stand behind our work and replace any defectively furnished parts or rebuild labor as a carry-out transmission, or parts, rebuild labor, and installation labor for jobs like this one that I'm doing now, where you purchase the rebuild labor, the installation labor, and the fluid, all covered by the warranty for 2 years or 24,000 miles. So then the center support, of course, goes in only one way. And then when you put it in the right way, you can then take a hammer and hammer time it. Laughing all the way. Alrighty then that goes down in the hole. Yes, sir, Babo. Then the center support snap ring goes in the hizzle for the nizzle for the kizzy kizzle. And of course this only goes in one way, okay? So don't be gay. Unless you want to be happy. Or homosexual. Either way, be what you want to be. Do what you want to do. I don't give two shits about it either way. You gotta hammer this bitch down in the hole, yo. Oh, wee. Yo. Yo, yo. Yo. Yo, wee, yo. Yo. Yo, wee, yo. Yo. Whoa. Never hunger, never prosper. I am fallen slave to failure. I hear music. Oh, that must be the neighbors. So then, she don't piss on me. Felicia! Where's Felicia? Felicia! Felicia! Okay, dumbass. Don't come out and see if I care. Felicia! Alrighty then. Spins nice and true, good and smooth. Smooth as a baby's butt. Then after that we get the forward planetary going in. Alrighty then. Planetary's good. You can see all the planetary gears are good. They're not wobbly. I did check them. All the washers inside there are thrust washers inside there are good to go. Torrington bearing is good. All the needles are good and not pitted. None of the metal on the ring gear is worn down. Snapchat, somebody sent me something. So you want to hold the output shaft as you're putting in the forward planetary so the output shaft won't fall out. Then you're going to need to use a extra hand in order to put in the doohickey, the output shaft snap ring. And I use a governor cover in order to make that happen, usually. So then, if I don't have a governor cover, I need to figure out something else. Yeah, usually I do have a governor cover. And I do have one. So then pull this here pin out of there, anchor pin, and you push the governor cover in with your knee, and you gotta kind of hold it in place so it don't fall down. Grab the snap ring with your handy dandy snap ring pliers, and be very careful because it wants to fall out of there all the time. Alright then, it's holding it in place. Alright then, and then you gotta very carefully and gently put this in here. Shit, man, this is kind of challenging. Kind of really challenging. Oh, it's so hard. Not unless you're really good at it, like I are. Unlike my English speaking capabilities. Just kidding. But seriously, it is now locked in place and it ain't going anywhere. See, I know how to speak good. Speaks well. Speaks good and swell. Good and swell. Okay, so pistons and stuff are getting out of my way. What the hell is that all about? That's what it was. Throw those in the trash box up here. So then, alrighty now. Alrighty then. We have a sun gear that's attached to the input sprag. Therefore, let me put this together. We're going to put it together. First, put the transmission in park so the output shaft stays still. That'll make this drop down in there much easier. Notice I didn't say easy, I said easier. Now you grab it with these here channel locks and spin it, twist it until it drops. And you'll hear it when it drops down all the way. You'll see where it's supposed to be, it'll drop down all the way. Obviously, you can eyeball it down too. So that's pretty much stacking the case. The only thing going next is the band, the pump, the out body section we got to do, and then put the pan on and you call it a day. Oh, the 2.4 servo as well. Get out of the way. So when I rebuild a 4L60 in particular, I do not replace the solenoids, unless of course it's bad. Only if it's bad would you ever want to replace it, because for what I charge for these rebuilds, you cannot afford to replace any of the solenoids unless you're charging extra for it. Because yeah, I would be closing my doors down with a quickness if I started replacing solenoids. Because yeah, no one can afford to do that at what I charge. We're rocking out next door. I like it. So then just to give you a quick summary of what we're going to do to get this thing wrapped up and finished up is go through the pump, make sure that the pump rotor, vanes, rings, and rubber parts and Teflon parts are all good, and that there's no issues to be concerned with the pump at all. Then we are going to put that in, make sure the band goes in correctly, and make sure that the 2.4 servo has all the wearable parts inside of it replaced with new parts, and then put a new filter on it, and check the EPC, make sure it's good. And then once all of that stuff has been done, we put the pan on it, and we put the transmission back inside the van, this van. And then once we've done that, I'll probably start recording the video again. We'll touch base back at that point. But until then, you all have yourselves a very pleasant afternoon, evening, morning, whatever it is for you. For me, it's very late evening. I'm working on this thing at like 12:30 at night. And yeah, we'll touch base again at that time. Peace out.